Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. We are previewing college bowls right now with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Right now we're going to cover the Foster Farms Bowl, Maryland and Stanford. Joe Duffy, thanks for being back with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Loshak.
All right, Joe, you've proven yourself long-term with us with your record in these videos, and you've particularly impressed me with your analysis of these bowls. I have a feeling, you're covering like 2/3 of the bowls with me this year, and I have a feeling your record is going to be great when all is said and done. First, give a plug for OffshoreInsiders.com before we get your analysis of this one. Another tough one.
Yeah, we're already off to another 3-0 start in the bowls as we file this report, 8-2 in football. And one of the reasons we do well in the bowls every single year, there are so many betting myths about the bowls and so many golden rules that are true. We can we've been able to parse the facts from the fiction, and we're very specific not only in these videos, but in the analysis at OffshoreInsiders.com.
Okay, sounds great, Joe. The Foster Farms Bowl. Foster Farms. Delicious chickens, delicious eggs, sausages, all that. I mean, sometimes I'm just eating breakfast served by Foster Farms products, and I'm just be eating it. I'm like, man, this is real good. Foster Farms breakfast. The chickens, the eggs, everything's great. Right, Joe?
See, I thought Foster Farms was that actor who drinks all the time. So, I thank you for educating me.
All right. Maryland Stanford is the Foster Farms Bowl, and Stanford's a 14-point favorite. Obviously, they're a very solid, disciplined team. They grind out wins. The question is just, should they be a 2-touchdown favorite here over Maryland? Relatively low total, 47.5 or 48, and Stanford was a strong under-trender on the year, 2-9 over-under. Maybe you want to take a shot with the under. Does that continue? I don't know. And Maryland 50-50 on sides in the beginning of the year. I know that Brent told me they were a sharp side in a bunch of weeks. Then they started to have some injury issues, and they sort of started to fade a little bit. ATS. This is a tough one. Is the line too big? I don't know. What's your take, Joe?
Yeah, well, Peter, although I'm finally back to being red hot, I admit it that in all my years of not only professional handicapping, but betting before that really goes back another 35, 40 years. I don't know if I can remember so many heartbreaking last-second losses. In Stanford, I was on the wrong end of that. So Stanford is a team that hasn't been all that kind to me this year, but I am going to be backing them here. Remember what I've said is that one of the bigger angles that was pointed up to me, Adam, 8-10 years ago, as Sharp said, if you do nothing more than just look at how far a team has to travel for a bowl, you're going to find a pretty big edge there. This is as big of a travel edge as you're going to find. Stanford, they're going to go a whole 13 miles to Santa Clara, Maryland, 2,423 miles. But in addition to that, if you really look at Stanford this year, they've been a true Peter principle team. They struggled against some of the better teams, but they've been able to beat up on the inferior teams. Maryland is an inferior team. And look, Maryland, they kind of did what they had to do. They wanted to prove that they belonged in the Big Ten. And I think, relatively speaking, they did that. Maybe playing this bowl game is somewhat anticlimactic, especially since they have the big travel disadvantage. Yes, Stanford's offense is a concern. There's no question about that when they're laying a ton of points. Huge edge on defense. Certainly a big edge on travel, but I think that Stanford has really played their best against teams that are inferior to them, and Maryland is certainly an inferior team. So I'm going to lay the lumber here, even though Stanford's broken my hearts a few times this year. I'll lay the lumber with Stanford.
I don't know. This one makes me a little bit nervous just because I know that Maryland was a sharp play earlier in the year, and I'm thinking that maybe with the rest and the break in between the end of the regular season and the bowl, maybe they'll revert back to that kind of form. And it's just with such a low total, 14 points, that's a pretty big margin, right? Does Stanford have the motivation and the real talent edge to reliably win by that much?
Maryland was in one of we found the same thing with Rutgers, where they got off to the great start and then they went in a little bit of a slump and then they exploded at the end. That normally when teams clearly upgrade in a conference, which Maryland definitely did, they have a little bit of that, adrenaline edge where the game means a little bit more to them. They have a little bit more to prove when they start the conference plays. And I think that Maryland was able to carry that a pretty long way this year, but I don't think any of that really applies here. So, yeah, I'm always nervous, and you're right, again, especially, and this is, I always say, another one of my golden rules, do not bet with your broken heart, because Stanford, my knee-jerk reaction was, I want to stay away from that team because they've been kind of nasty to me and a couple heartbreaking last-second losses this year. But you can't be like that. You can't be afraid just because one team's been unkind to you. Still got to go with proven handicapping techniques, and I do think that Stanford is the percentage play.
All right, Joe, we'll see how it turns out. Right now, -14 is the market number. Thanks, Joe.
The SBR network offers free sports picks and game breakdowns, big money free betting contests year-round, a real-time Vegas-style odds monitoring service, and much more. So come see for yourself. To stay updated on SBR news and promotions, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, and do be sure to subscribe to the Sportsbook Review YouTube channel to catch all our daily sports shows.